We've been asking the question from a very top-level Tactica perspective. How to use light mechs, mediums, heavies, and assaults. This idea of a Battletech template where if you understand the primary strengths and the primary weaknesses of these different classifications of mechs, then you can layer that over, going through the technical manuals and picking the machines that you want to play, getting the most out of them. And then, of course, looking for strengths and weaknesses within each individual machine. Now, building on this, of course, the great thing about Battletech is the very plug-and-play nature of the game where you can play just mechs. I mean, for a number of years, that's how I played Battletech. But you also have the option, we've got this amazing narrative, the Inner Sphere. You also have the option to play combined arms, total warfare, tanks, infantry, artillery, air support. So we're going to follow up in those categories now, asking the similar question, how do we play X unit on the table, on the hex map? And in this vlog, of course, we're going to be exploring tanks. Now, there are lots of different tanks in Battletech. The same idea, tonnage, you've got light techs, medium tanks, heavy tanks, and not necessarily assault class tanks, but you do have 100-ton tanks. The heaviest tank in the game, the Behemoth, can easily take on an entire lance in itself. It kind of makes an ogre cry, given all of the weapons and sheer armor that it has. But like everything in Battletech, there's a battle value or a tonnage or a C-bill attached to it. And you want to get the most out of your battle value, whether it's low or high. And especially at the more higher battle value units, whether they're mechs or tanks, even if you're playing a high point game, even if we're going in like 16K Inner Sphere, it's got some serious bite. You're throwing down some serious miniatures. 16K clans is like, I don't even have a star. Like just the difference in battle value. But we want to get the most out of it. And even at those higher battle value games, investing in heavier tanks, that's a significant portion of your battle value. So this idea of a template, this idea of utilizing tanks and pulling them into the game. Now we're going to set aside for a moment, there's some tanks that are they're kind of hybrids. They kind of work with infantry. A perfect example would be the Goblin. The biggest question with infantry, just a sidebar for a moment for the new players. Infantry are great, low battle value, very, very effective, but primarily defensive in nature. They don't move very fast at all. One hex, and if they're out in the open, they're in trouble. They evaporate to machine guns and flamers and other type weapons. But in the right circumstances, they can easily take on, tie up, or damage mechs. And think about that in terms of battle value. But infantry need a delivery system. You can mechanize them. You can give them an APC, right? A transport system. It's kind of a tank in that it utilizes the vehicle rules for Battletech. But the idea is to get it from point A to point B. It really doesn't have any weapons, maybe a machine gun, and it can't really take any hits. But you have these hybrid vehicles in Battletech like the Goblin, where it's kind of a tank in that it has a large laser, it's on a turret, it has a machine gun, but it also has heavy armor, good speed, and the ability to transport infantry. So it kind of works both ways. We're going to push that aside for a moment because it kind of blurs the line, almost its own category, in between tanks, the bridge between tanks and infantry. But tanks. The primary thing with tanks is for the battle value, you can get more guns than a mech. You can get more guns on the table at a cheaper price than a mech, have good maneuverability, have good armor. The drawback is that maneuverability and how damage is taken by vehicles. Generally speaking, motive hits happen when you get hit. This is why facing is very important for tanks, right? Mech facing, not that it's simple, but mech facing is like, look, keep center torso towards the target because that's where the armor is. Rear armor, you're going to get blasted real fast. It's going to go to internals. Ammo's going to explode. Engine hits, gyro hits, crazy stuff. With vehicles, you want to be hull forward, hull down, because if you get hit on the side, motive hits means you're taking hits to the tracks, to the hovers, to the reinforced wheels, or in the rear, really taking damage. Not to mention the internal damage and various critical hits are a lot more fatal for vehicles. So this idea that as vehicles take damage, even with heavy armor, they're very prone to essentially becoming immobilized or having turrets lock or taking some critical hits and exploding. Well, the trade-off is same amount of guns for a lot less battle value. A perfect example, you want to get 3 PPCs on the table and have the ability to fire them. One of the easiest ways to do that outside of customized mechs is to take a awesome mech. Or one could possibly say taking a Marauder, okay, 2 PPCs and you've got the autocannon, slight downgrade in firepower, heat management issues, but that's the primary bite to get these on the table. You can take the Shrek PPC carrier, 3 PPCs on a turret, okay armor, for a fraction of the battle value. Now, imagine 3 of these tanks sitting in cover, well fortified, the range of a PPC, firing 9 a turn. That's got some serious bite. That's going to make any mech commander, that's going to make any lance reevaluate and figure out what's going on. You can get that battle value on the table, get those toys on the table for a lot less. But if you're caught unaware, or if you're caught in the right way, the motive hits, you take damage, you go to crits. Tanks, they have some staying power, but they can fold pretty fast. So within that framework, what are we looking at? If you're playing combined arms, 2 ways to go about tanks, and they tend to be kind of extreme. The first is to look and say, okay, look, this is the lance I'm playing. This is what it does well. These are the areas where it could be easily exploited. These are the places where it's weak. Those weaknesses, throw in some vehicles to cover those weaknesses. An example would be if I'm playing a very fast lance that wants to get up there and utilize SRM packs and be very, very fast, but 0 long-range support, and I need something to cover on the way in, take an LRM carrier and just blast that away as the lance is moving. Likewise, if I'm playing a lance that I want to have some support for, take some of those Shrek PPC carriers and blast them. Have them coming up as a second wave. Tremendous opportunities. The places that you're weak, increase it, protect it with vehicles. The opposite side to that is you build a lance and it does something really well, then pile on vehicles for more battle value, but less battle value, and make that lance even really excel a lot more. Now, balancing this out, of course, it's very easy, and I'm just a massive tank enthusiast in other wargaming systems, and especially in Battletech. I don't want to get in over my head. You don't want to get in over your head dropping serious battle value. I'm not playing a whole lance of behemoths, 100-ton tanks. Just, it's not going to be effective. There is a level of expendability with these. Now, there's also tremendous tabletop glory to be won. But the expendability of various battle groups and various vehicles, you want to mix in some lighter ones. You want to mix in some medium ones. You want to have that ability where I can say, yeah, I lost 3 light tanks, but I took out half your lance. I dropped 2 of your mediums. I'm well ahead in battle value. You can't keep up that attrition. The other strength of vehicles is because you can get more on the table, means you have an initiative sink. You have like an initiative buffer. Even if you lose initiative, you can move units in different groups and move the pieces that are best, the units that are best, last. It's also a buffer. Not that I ever want to lose a mech, but if I did lose a mech and I was down, I still have a little bit of padding with the initiative. Or I can have some tanks move up and try to work in supporting a lance. Going total warfare, going combined arms changes Battletech tremendously. There are significant advantages to vehicles, tanks specifically, and there are some specific disadvantages. Understanding that template, now as you look through the tech manuals and start figuring out what tanks you're going to add to your collection.